All right, everybody. So we're back again with our nightly horror stories, and this one is called Sundown Town. This is part three. This comes from a friend of mine from Hackensack, New Jersey. She said that, she's a reporter, and what she did, she's trying to locate a friend of hers daughter at the time. So they came up missing, and there was a PI that was sent in to investigate, and he also didn't return on the investigation. So she got the leads from where he had previously been from her friend, and she took off into the direction to find either or both parties, and she's taking it upon herself. So again, these are nightly stories, horror stories told by L.A. Kendrick. And we're going to call my friend Shanice, because again, she's got a podcast and she blogs, so she doesn't really want to expose herself at this point in time. But I have seen some of the footage, and it's pretty intense on what she showed me. So I don't know. So you guys just take the story for what it is, and lay back, sit back, and enjoy. So last time we spoke, when we last left her, she was she had just dealt with this guy that bumped her. So she tells me at this point, this is when she had to find her courage, because she was really shaken. Well, not really shaken, but she was shaken a bit by what had just taken place with that tall, scruffy looking guy that bumped her. And the reply from the kids kind of threw her off a little bit as well. So she rides around, stopping at parks and taking pictures of the area and people. She tells me that when she checks her digital camera, the background are in total and clear focus, but the faces of people are all blurred and distorted. So she takes a picture of herself to just make sure that the camera was operating perfectly and fine, and the picture of herself is clear and perfect. Even some of the animals that she captured in the background are in clear frames, which, like the squirrels and some of the birds that she was taking a picture with, they're all clear and perfect frames. So that had her a little bit taken off. So she sent an image of the people that she'd taken to her fiance on her phone, and she was asking him what he thought. So he didn't get back to her right away, but it was like, she didn't give him enough time anyway. So, and now this is where she picks up her search for Gabby, and she rides around the area that she was referred to by the Uber driver. And she sees a man that fits the description. And she approaches him and she talks to him, and she said that she was sure that he had information on the town. And he said, "Who's asking?" And she said, "A reporter." So when she said reporter, he tries to walk away, but then she said, "Hey, I just want some information. I've lost two people, some friends, and I'd like to see if I can locate them and track them down, but they said that you were the guy to talk to." And she said, I'll pay for, a meal and something, the good stuff that you like. Well, he can't resist this, so they go to a diner that's close by, and they sit down and they try to have a conversation. And so she asks him to explain what he knows and what he's seen, and she gives him the description of the PI, and then she shows him an image, the picture of the daughter, her friend's daughter, and he recognizes both. And he says he knows where they take him. And she said, "Well, who's the they?" He said, "This town. This town is cursed." And she was like, "Cursed?" And then he goes on to explain that, yeah, it's been centuries of this. My family, they shunned my family because my family didn't want any part of it, but my family were like founding members of this area and basically this town. And when they came, they didn't want to practice pagan rituals as the majority of the town did. They just kept practicing these pagan rituals and sacrifices, and it transformed the people into something, demonic and ghoulish, as he liked to say. And that's the term that he used. And she said, "Ghoulish, could you tell me more?" And he explained about the bonfires and that they really were sacrifices and that those aren't suits or costumes that they're wearing. So when he says this, her eyes get a little bit big and she relaxes and calms down. And some of the people in the diner started looking and, being nosy. And then he was explaining to her, he said, you notice how they're responding to us. And that they think that I'm crazy, but no, I'm not crazy. I'm just, I'm not going to go along with what's going on in the town. I'm going to speak the truth. And then she said, well, how have you survived so long if the town is this way? He said, well, I got my ways. And so they're steady, they pause for a minute and he's eating because he hasn't had a good meal in a while, he says. And she keeps pressuring him for questions and asking him what's going on and about the town. And he fills her in. He said, well, I can take you to where they keep them. And she said, keep what? And he says to her, the bodies. Or what's left of them. She said, what's left of the bodies? What do you mean? He said, those bonfires, I can show you where they store the bodies and where they dispose of the people and the bodies or the remains. She says, okay. He says, it's got to be, after dark. And tonight we're going to go after the bonfire. We'll sit around and watch from a distance and check it out. And this is a sundown town, so we got to be really careful with you out there because you are an outsider and they are watching you now, as you can see. And she says, okay, that's fine. So, she checks in her purse again, and yes, she still has her Beretta 32. And as she's looking in the purse and making sure that she has everything that she needs, that tall guy comes up again, but this time he puts his hands on her. And instinctively, she grabs him in a wrist lock and she turns him and she flips him over onto the ground in the diner. Some of the people stand up, some of the people sit down, and then Gabby starts laughing. And as he's laughing, the guy the tall, scruffy guy, he says that, Gabby, you talk too much and it's going to be your undoing one day. And he says to him, yeah, but look who's on the ground right now. Apparently this guy is beat up on Gabby or giving Gabby a hard time over the years. And so he's enjoying what he's seeing. So she tells him to keep his hands to himself. And he said, yeah, like I told you, you better not be here by sundown. As she releases him. But he's really favoring that wrist because it was a pretty stiff wrist lock that she put on him. And he gets up and he walks away. And then the lady comes to the table with the coffee. And the bill, she said, I think you guys need to leave. So she pays her tab and pays Gabby's tab, and they do. They both get up and they leave without further incident. And when they leave, Gabby says, what about that good juice? So what they do is she takes Gabby to the liquor store that's right across the street, and she gets him what he wants. And then he tells her, I'll be back over here around 7. Okay? And then he says, no, let me make it around 8 when it's dark so nobody can really see what's going on. And he said, bring your camera and bring that gun because you just might need it. You're going to definitely need the camera, but you might need that gun because these people are, or whatever you want to call them, they're pretty sick. So she says, okay. And she says, well, I'll meet you here and go back to the hotel and get a little rest. And so they depart. She goes to the hotel, gets a little rest, sits down and focuses. Then she lays back, and then she gets a call from her fiance, and he explains that he's never seen anything like it. But she can hear a car in the background, and she's like, well, where are you at? He said, oh, I'm just out getting some groceries. And she says, okay, pick up some things for me. And he says, okay, that's fine. And they cut the phone call short. And from that point on, she dozes off for a few minutes. I think she said she might have slept for maybe an hour or two. And when she wakes up, it's right around 8 o'clock. So she's getting ready. She's gathering herself and she's getting ready. And it's really strange because she says she can look out her window and she can see Gabby across the street. So apparently the hotel and the liquor store are pretty close by. So he's waving to her to come on. And she gets herself ready and checks all of her equipment, and she heads out the door, lets her fiance know what's going on again, and she's on her way to try to find her best friend's or her friend's daughter and the PI. And so that's where I'm going to leave it. Well, what do you guys think of the story? Like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Again, this is pretty intense, and she said this really happened, and I have seen some of the footage. And she said she's got video footage. I've just seen basic pictures. So, I'll come to my own conclusion at some point. But I'm pretty convinced. And if you like what we're doing, if you feel, you feel the need, my Cash App is $outrage, $outrage95. The donations help with me getting publications for the next 2 books that are coming out. It's been kind of tough. It's been kind of slow. Business has been kind of slow, so any little bit helps when I can get those books out. And if whoever donates, you could possibly see your name in the credits and get a mention in the books. But my books are sold on Amazon, Ingram, Kindle, Nook, however they pronounce it, and Barnes and Noble. So again, check your closets, check under your beds, check all the dark corners of your house. And if you happen to go outside and it's night, check under your cars, because you never know what's lurking in the dark to make you a story. This is L.A. Kendrick, bringing you the heavy.